All right, I think we're live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great weekend here so far. Thanks for tuning in here on a Saturday and hanging out with me here before the Super Bowl tomorrow. So like all the other usual live streams, we're going to go about 2 hours or so. We'll give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member with the green usernames there. They always get that priority answering. If you'd also like that priority answering, there's always a join button there in the description where you can also get that as well. And so I see we have a bunch of people already joined in here, and I hope everyone's doing well. And I see Shane, thanks for kicking off the night already, gifting 5 memberships here to hopefully some people that are maybe in the chat so they can actually participate tonight and get that priority answering as well. But thanks so much, Shane, for the generosity. I really appreciate it. And MDKN, thanks for being a member for 34 months now. He says almost 3 years. Daggum. Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks so much. And yeah, like I said, I'm going to be working on a new badge here. I believe next month is when we'll cross the 3-year mark for those first members that joined way back when. It's crazy. It's been almost 3 years now. But yeah, so thanks so much, MDKN, for the support all these years. It's crazy to say, and it really means a lot. It really has helped the channel too with, providing a little bit more of a baseline, every month. And just, with the rockiness of YouTube, sometimes it's nice to have that support. So thank you all so much again. And MDK also says, putting off the I Do Cars upload to watch you, Matt. Well, I appreciate that, but do what you got to do. I'll be here. You can always watch this afterwards too. These are always VODs, video on demand. You can watch after the fact if the live doesn't work for you guys tonight. Totally understand being a little bit of a different time here, but anyway, let me see here. So getting into the other little member questions. I see we have Harsha, Brian, B. Mitchell, Kyle, Cars, Chad, and Dave, Danny, Shane, Wheatman, Luke, Cam, Luke. Yeah, thank you all so much for joining in, and I hope you're all doing well. I see Harsha's first comment here of the night. He said, this month has been terribly tragic. We've seen a couple of plane crashes this month, and we're only 2 months in. Yeah, it's not great to see for someone who flies a lot for my job. And, I've been even thinking about, cutting back on a lot of press trips this year in general, just for a variety of reasons. And it was something that I was already kind of like looking to pull back on a little bit this year. And now with the plane stuff, and now it sounds like there's going to be some changes to the air traffic control systems possibly being proposed and stuff. Obviously they need to have more staffing, and there's a lot of, problems that go into that. I'm not an expert on any of them, but yeah, it makes me a little nervous to fly. Obviously it's still the safest way to travel. I know all the statistics and all that, but it's not great to see. Anytime there's an airline related mishap, it is, gives me some pause for sure. Because the thing with, even though planes are safe, the safest way to travel, it's just that you have no control, and it's very small margin of error. It's just, I'm not going to get morbid, but you don't have a whole lot of hope, in a plane if something goes wrong. And some people still get lucky. And, there are people like the Miracle on the Hudson, with Sully Sullenberger. There are, some things where it's not all doom and gloom, but, in a car, at least I have control. Even if it is more dangerous, I feel like I am the master of my own destiny there versus flipping a coin like you do in a plane, basically, So anyway, we won't get off on a morbid start, but yeah, it's not great. And I really hope that that's not something we continue to see more of. Hopefully that was just a weird coincidence that there was 2 so close to each other, and hopefully we won't hear about another plane incident for a long time. But anyway, I see Brian says, good evening, everyone. Hope your weekend's going well. B. Mitchell says, evening from the frigid hinterland of Fargo, North Dakota. Yeah, it can't be fun there, I'm sure. We had some weird weather today, actually, while we're talking about the weather. It was 32 degrees, but it was pouring rain. Not sure why it didn't turn into snow. Obviously, there's some meteorological reason, but the strangest thing was not only was it raining in 32, but also it was like a thunderstorm. Like there was actual thunder and lightning, which I think maybe happens occasionally in February around here, but it's been a while. And not what you usually expect in the wintertime. And it was just really a strange day as far as the weather here. But I know a bunch of people got a bunch of ice as well. Thankfully, we kind of got missed with that. But yeah, crazy stuff here. And Kyle, thanks for saying hi. And Cars, Chad's ready for another great chat. Me as well. And thanks also Chad and Jordan for sending in. They will be you'll be able to see their car for the member of the week. No one submitted for a while for the member of the week. That is one of the member exclusive posts that I do. But we'll have a member of the week post here thanks to them here on Monday. So stay tuned for that. B. Mitchell says car spot of the week was down in South Dakota where I saw an S550 Mustang GT in full highway patrol gear in use on I-90 in the snow. Wow, that's crazy. I've actually never seen an S550 in police get up. That's cool to know about. So thanks for sharing. And Dave says hello from the future 51st state. Oh man, that's funny. I could go on a tangent, but I definitely won't. But let me see. But thanks for the laugh, Dave. Danny says, hey, everyone, and Matt, my two interesting spots were awkwardly two Subarus. One was a second-gen Legacy LSI sedan, and the other was a 2002 Outback LL Bean Edition 3.0 H6. Love being here. That's awesome. Yeah, thanks for stopping by, Danny. And that's yeah, I'm kind of surprised they haven't continued to do the LL Bean edition because you would think like something like that, this would be like ripe time with everyone loving, LL Bean and REI and all these different brands. Like, why don't we see more of that? I don't know. We'll see if that kind of stuff ever comes back or not. But let me see here. I don't know if you guys can tell, but my light above me here is an LED, and I don't know if this ever happens when you buy LED bulbs, but sometimes they'll flicker. And I mean, I swear I try to buy the nicest LED bulbs because I'm often using them for lighting for camera stuff, but it's no matter how much I spend on an LED bulb, they're always iffy with the quality. But anyway, hopefully usually it stops after a few minutes, but I don't know if you guys can even see on the camera here. But anyway, let me see. Shane says, happy Monday, number 6, everyone. I don't get the joke there, but Weeman says, happy Saturday, keeping us on track with the right day of the week there. But Luke says, remember the Kia Borrego? It had a 4.6 liter V8 and as an engine option, the only V8 Kia ever. I thought, didn't the K900 have a V8 too? I think it did. I could be wrong because the one I reviewed was a twin turbo V6, but I thought the prior generation was a V8. I could be wrong. But yeah, the Borrego, I'm surprised they didn't bring that back, as some big body on frame thing. I think Telluride makes more sense as, their name currently, but even I think people were thinking when Telluride was coming that could have been a new Borrego as well, and just never decided to use that name again for some reason. Danny says New Jersey's getting dumped with snow this week, so yeah, we're expecting to have 7 to 9 inches. Wow, crazy. And Cam Jam says aloha, and Luke says Fargo, North Dakota, where 0 degrees is summer. Pretty much, I'm sure. And Jordan, thank you so much for the first super chat of the night here, saying the Afeela reveal wasn't impressive. Could have also contributed to Nissan pulling out of the Honda merger. I don't think so. Because the Afeela thing is kind of like a separate thing anyway. With Sony, I don't know if that would have. I guess by extension that could have maybe been something, but I don't think Nissan really cared about that. But I agree, the Afeela thing, it's wildly overpriced. It's like Lucid Air pricing for a vehicle that looks way more bland than a Lucid Air. It looks smaller than a Lucid Air, has less impressive charging, less impressive range, less impressive power, and it's the same price as a Lucid Air. And, even Model S, I'd say, honestly, in some objective ways, is still more competitive than even that. And that's a, 15-year-old car at this point or something. I mean, it's crazy. I don't know why they thought the Afeela was worth that kind of money. I think that's going to be the biggest flop if it even gets to production. But I mean, that's going to be no one. I can't imagine anyone going for that. Even if you are a Sony super fan, there's nothing about that car that even says Sony on it or about it. It doesn't have a PlayStation built in. I don't think it doesn't have any unique stuff. So it's what's the point of it? I don't know. That one I'd love to talk to the marketing people and the development people for that and be like, please tell me what you're thinking. Please help me to make sense of this because I can't figure out an angle for that car at all. It had a promising start and then, I thought it was gonna be maybe 50 or 60 grand, and then the price tag just completely kills it. Um, but anyway, thank you so much, Jordan, for the super chat. I appreciate it. And let me see. Luke says, "Does anyone else notice Matt is always fashionably late by 2 minutes?" I apologize. I don't do that deliberately. It's just I'm always getting set up, and it's always like other things to do beforehand. But I apologize for that. MDKN says, "Checking in from icy southeastern Pennsylvania. Tired of the ice. I want warm weather to see how my summer wheels look on Kraken with the lowering springs on." Nice. Well, at least you got something to look forward to there. And yeah, I mean, at this point, we're maybe 3 weeks away from the hope of slightly warmer weather in March, even though March, at least in Pittsburgh here, is usually miserable. I think March is, in my opinion, the worst month of the year, at least weather-wise. It's like you're so burned out from winter, but spring isn't actually kicking in yet. And it's just like this weird limbo that's just misery. I never enjoy March. Let me know your least favorite month of the year in the comments. I'm curious what everyone else has come to, especially if you're in the Northeast area here where you have similar weather. But yeah, March is always, I guess if you're a basketball fan, you got March Madness, and so you got that going for you. I don't really care that much about that. So that's no redeeming quality for me, but maybe someone else has a bright side to March they can bring up. And B. Mitchell said 0 degrees was the day's high, 0 degrees Celsius this summer. Man, yeah, I couldn't handle it. And let me see here. Decepticon, thanks for stopping by, and Stratus Edge as well. And let me see. Jordan, yeah, Tyler, Anthony, thanks everyone for saying hi. And let me see. Harsher says, "This week I saw a guy in a lifted truck climb over the yellow barrier onto the oncoming lane and wanted to beat everyone. U.S. licensing is a joke and it should be stricter." Yeah, and it's always one of those things where there's never a cop when you need one. I mean, the amount of stuff I see, so many crazy things, and then it's like I see a cop like 2 minutes later, and I'm like, man, like, yeah, there's so many people who get so lucky, and yeah, it's wild. My cringy spot of the day was there was a like cement gray F-150 that had shiny silvery metallic balls hanging from the back of it, the truck nuts, and it's just, those were really common a while back, but I feel like at least around here I haven't seen them very often recently. I feel like some people might have second guessed, like, is this actually something I want to have on my truck? But that person not only wanted them, but they wanted them to be shiny and reflective for everyone to make sure they don't miss. Car customization, I suppose, is different for everyone, but yeah, that was not an enjoyable sight. Chad, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, "If you have older wiring, you may need an LED with dimmer settings, as most are on off." Interesting. Yeah, because I don't have a dimmer on this light, but maybe, yeah, an LED that does do dimmer stuff so that maybe it's a little more reliable. I don't know, but thank you for the insight. I have no clue how any of that works, but I'll look into maybe trying an LED bulb that does dim. I don't know. I don't think this one does, but I appreciate that. I'll have to look into that. Thank you. And thanks again for the super chat too. And let me see here. Sean, thanks for stopping by. And Cars says, "My coworker has a red C7 Corvette. Recently, she was driving on a multi-lane road with a large pickup truck when a large pickup truck drove next to her in the left lane. The driver didn't see her until his tire rubbed her Corvette. Holy crap, that's terrifying." Well, hopefully it was just a little paint rub and it didn't actually do any other damage, but that is... Yeah, that's one of the things about small cars. I adore small cars, but yeah, when you're in a giant vehicle, it's hard for people to see you. And yeah, there was actually, the IAHS did an interesting study, and the results just came out this week that said that basically whenever you are in a large truck, you are like, once you're over 4,000 pounds for your vehicle weight, you have very small improvements in safety the heavier and the bigger you get, but it's like a law of diminishing returns once you're over 4,000 pounds. And it's like you really don't improve your own safety in the truck, but you are more dangerous to everyone else around you by like sevenfold or something by each 1,000 pounds up you go, and you know how much bigger and bigger you get. And it's like this interesting phenomenon where it basically painted large, heavy truck drivers and also people in heavy EVs as, but mostly trucks, because especially the high ones where they kind of miss a lot of those crash structures. But it's like they are more of a risk to everyone else. And, it's this idea that everyone is also buying trucks because they feel like they're safer in trucks. But the reality is you're not actually safer. You're just endangering everyone else who's still in small cars. And you're not actually improving your safety that much. As if you were in something with those 4,000 pounds, it'd be roughly equal. But then when you go up to that heavier weight, it kind of just gets worse for everybody else. It's kind of an interesting thing. You can check out the website if you're curious to read more. Those of you who are interested in safety like I am. But anyway, Chase, thank you so much for rejoining. Chase M, and welcome back to the Matt Maran Motoring Club here. And he says, I got to renew, Matt. This membership is personal to me. I really appreciate that, Chase. And looking forward to chatting with you tonight here. If you have any questions or thoughts, feel free to send them. I'm always happy to chat. And thanks so much for joining in here. And let me see other questions here. Vishal says, hey, Matt, watched your Mazda 3 review. Really is a nice car for the money, but the space was the deal breaker for me coming from a spacious car like the Passat. Yeah, that's my biggest problem. Like I said at the end of that Mazda 3 video, I love it, but I would have to go with one of the competitors that's bigger if I was actually shopping in that segment as well, because it's tight. I mean, I put the car seat back there with my daughter, who's she's getting pretty big now. She's gonna be 4 here, pretty soon, and she's growing really well. And it was not comfortable for her, honestly, in her forward-facing car seat. And then the one day I had that Mazda 3, I had to pick up my father-in-law with my daughter in the back, and my father-in-law, I was like, don't even bother trying the front seat, because he's like 6'3" or 6'4", something like that. I was like, don't even bother sitting in the front seat in front of my daughter, because I'm like, there's no way you're gonna fit. I'm like, you're better off sitting behind me. And even then he's like scrunched. I'm like, man, like, they would do so much better sales wise with that car if it just had another 2 inches of headroom and 2 inches of legroom. It's not, it doesn't have to be best in class, but to have a huge improvement. But yeah, and honestly, it's strange that Mazda, that was the whole reason I think why Mazda 6 existed, is it gave you that bigger space. And then whenever, I'm assuming they knew they were going to pull the plug on Mazda 6. I'm surprised even back in 2019, they didn't make it bigger with this new generation. But, we got to be getting a new generation, I assume, relatively soon, unless they pull a CX-5 on us and keep it around forever. But I would hope that we see a new generation relatively soon, and especially if Mazda is not going to do any large Mazda 6 successor, which there's been rumors back and forth. Are they going to just like make something bigger? Are they not? There was rumors of them partnering with Lexus in the past and doing, something new, but I have no clue. I haven't heard anything about that stuff in over a year, if not more. So I don't know what they're going to do, but especially if there's no new Mazda 6, they got to make the new Mazda 3 bigger. Because I think that's why, a lot of people are going up to bigger cars. I think even, I don't know if he's in the live stream here, but he commented on the video and said he had a Mazda 3, needed more space, as most people do as they progress through their lives. And he ended up just having to go up to a CX-50. And, I wonder how many people like that would have stayed with a Mazda 3 or gone to a Mazda 6 if there was still that option. I just feel like Mazda's got a really, glaring gap in their lineup there of like no space at all or a bunch of space, and there's no middle ground there, But yeah, I Mazda 3, it's a shame because it's a fantastic car in every other way. And if you don't need the space, absolutely, I still think it's my favorite in the class. Let me see. I see SWE Bavador says, I fly for a living and drive an FK8. Scary, but yes, still way more safe than driving. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I know a flight attendant and a few other people, actually one person that is a kind of a co-pilot in the Navy. And so I hear, all the time about how, flying is safe, but I've also, there's so much burnout with air traffic control. I mean, these poor people are working way longer hours than they should be, mandatory overtime, understaffing, all that kind of stuff is a recipe for disaster in any corporate environment. and then you know have people flying at hundreds of miles an hour and all that. It's just not the kind of place where you want to be understaffed. You know, I'm like, put all the money you need into hiring air traffic controllers or training air traffic controllers. Like, that is not a job you want to, like, you know, let fall through the cracks and skimp on. Like, pay them whatever they need to be paid, budget whatever you need to budget, but like, you don't want to be messing with hundreds of lives flying around in a tin can. Anyway, but thanks so much for chiming in there, and hope everything continues to be good for you. And you gotta, yeah, just I've always heard that airport was always bad too, Reagan. I thankfully I think I've only flown through it once or twice, but I'm gonna definitely avoid that one from now on because it just seems like there's way too much going on at that airport anyway. But anyway, Luke says the lights go out, live stream in the basement. Then we'd have to share the basement with two. He wouldn't like that, so we'll have to make sure that we stay out of the basement. That's two's clubhouse. And Decepticon says it's Matt Moran himself. I appreciate the announcer I don't know, intros, I guess I should say. Decepticon, I appreciate it. Gran says, hello, Matt. I'm watching on the new PC a friend and I built today. That's awesome. Congrats. A friend of mine also enjoys building computers. It's got to be very fun and very satisfying and gratifying kind of thing. So that's very cool. And hopefully the stream looks okay on whatever monitor you're using. I am really considering probably going up to 4K at some point this year for the reviews. I already do, you know, for the weekly updates, but I'm really starting to pay attention to TV viewership and how that continues to grow. And even though these videos look okay, and we've talked about this in the past, you know, a lot of people say it looks fine, you know, on their TVs, but, you know, and the live streams I'm not worried about quite as much because these aren't always going to be super high quality anyway. But you know, for the reviews, I think, you know, it's getting time to finally get those up to 4K. So I may try to make that switch here sometime in the next few months. We'll see. Been kind of looking into it a little bit more here in the past week or two. But let me see. Luke says, forgot K900 did have the V8. I forgot about that one. Okay, so I wasn't crazy. Thanks for checking for me. And Jermaine says, hey, Matt, in your opinion, what are the top 3 modern tuning platforms under 80 grand? I'd say B58, whether you're talking BMW or Supra, is probably got to be one of the best ones. And otherwise, I am so out of the loop on tuning culture and on what gets you the best gains for the best money. I am completely out of that world. So I am not the best person to ask, unfortunately. I wish I could give you a better answer. But yeah, I don't know. I've heard a lot of people say they have really good luck with the current gen WRXs and they have a lot of potential. But yeah, I'm not very qualified to answer that, unfortunately. And let me see. SL Vonops asking, did Nissan pull out or vice versa? From what I have heard, Nissan is the one that, according to the rumors, they pulled out because of what Honda was demanding, basically. So Honda caused the collapse, I guess you could say, but Nissan was the one that put their foot down on it. If, again, the rumors are true, we will see. Supposedly we're going to get info on that here in the next week during their Nissan's financial update or whatever. And we'll see, you know, what happens. I'm really curious. It does sound like they have another partner in mind with them saying a tech company in the US. But, you know, maybe they're just, you know, wanting to get into that sector and have that kind of help. I don't know. We'll have to see. But let me see. Jay, thanks so much for being a member for 19 months now. I really appreciate it. He says, hey, Matt, thoughts on TE37 wheels? Best JDM wheel or overplayed, in your opinion? Trying to get a set for my 22 ILX A-Spec. White one, gray wheels, though. I'm pretty sure I remember what TE37s look like. This is how out of the loop I am on the aftermarket, sadly. I mean, obviously, it's, yeah, one of the most popular, famous wheels. I think I know what they look like. But yeah, I mean, they're very popular for a reason. And I mean, I've always liked a lot of those classic, you know, JDM wheels that everyone always uses that are very popular. But yeah, trying to visualize exactly which one, I can't. I apologize. Maybe I'm nervous. I could do a screen share and Google it right now and show everyone on camera what TE37s look like. But last time I did a screen share, it caused the stream to crash like 5 minutes later. I don't know if that was just a fluke. I will try at some point, but I'd rather wait until a little later in the live stream before I risk cannibalizing viewership here. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about there. I always love if you have a white car though. The STI fan in me still, would say go for gold TE37s. Could be fun on white, but that's obviously a little more of a bolder choice. But anyway, sorry, I'm not much up there. Again, aftermarket questions are not my forte, unfortunately. And let me see here. I think I saw someone else commenting about T37s. MDCan said they're overplayed, overpriced, and they're literally on everything. They look good, but it isn't exciting anymore. Well, there you go. Thanks for sharing your opinion as well, MDKN. Modifications are always so personal. And I truly am a believer in do what makes you happy, even if other people think they're overplayed or whatever, it's your car. You're the one that has to look at it every day. You're the only person that matters, for your car's customization. And so, I know some people get crap for, this stuff. And if you are sharing your car online, you're worried about hate comments. I understand. But, I think car customizations, it's very personal. And I don't think anyone's opinion matters other than yours. But I appreciate you asking. And, but hopefully you can find some that you love there. And let me see. Zachary says, if you had, and thanks for stopping by, Zachary, it's good to see you here. He says, if you had to build an ideal car that balances fun and practicality using various components from any 2025 car model, what would you pick? Man, that is quite the question. I'm trying to think. I mean, see, there's a couple different ways I could play this. If I'm balancing fun and practicality, and we're talking like no, budget restrictions, I would just say I'd just buy a Ferrari Pro Songway. Because you have the amazing V12, you have amazing performance, you have 4-door capability, you have all-wheel drive, so you have all the practical-ish boxes are checked, and all the fun boxes are checked in the best way. Because to me, the Ferrari V12 is my favorite engine in production currently. Probably one of my favorite of all time, honestly, or possibly my absolute favorite of all time. But so that motor, in everything is like my favorite as far as ideal cars. And per Songway, it would probably be. So I'm probably a boring. I know you're looking for more of a Frankenstein kind of build as far as what I would put together. But it would probably be that. Runner up would be Ferrari GTC4 Lusso. You have a back seat, you have all-wheel drive, still that glorious V12 in a hatchback shape. I'd love to have a GTC4 Lusso someday. I'd even settle for an FF, even with the old infotainment and all that stuff, just because it's the same magical kind of thing, idea-wise. If I had to, hodgepodge pieces together from other cars, I'm very passionate about sport compact stuff. So I think, like what I would love to see would be like a GR Corolla with the exhaust from an Elantra N and all the toys that Elantra N gets, the active exhaust, the adaptive dampers that you can change, on the fly, all those types of little things, changing the sounds on the inside. So basically, if you could give me all the funnest parts of Elantra N with the powertrain of GR Corolla, and that car's, adjustable all-wheel drive system. If you give me, GR Corolla powertrain with the fun stuff from Elantra N, and then you put it in a Integra hatch shape, or just put it in an Integra body, that would be kind of like my ultimate Frankenstein sport compact, because I love the space, the size, and the interior of like Integra Type S. And that car has a decent sound to it already, definitely better than Type R in my opinion, but it doesn't have the all-wheel drive practicality, doesn't have obviously an adjustable rear-wheel drive kind of nature like you can get with GR Corolla. So that's, and a launcher N, in my opinion, does all those things really well. I think, if I, since I can't have that hodgepodge of a car, the closest thing that actually gets to that, again, just going into a dealership and buying that, would be Ioniq 5N. Yes, it doesn't have gas power, but you get the fun of a launcher N in Ioniq 5. You get the space, better space than all the cars I mentioned. Obviously, you have more weight, so it's not quite as flickable as GR Corolla, just because it's bigger and heavier, but it does get very close to that fun. And that's why it was my car of the year last year, because it kind of does the closest that I can reasonably expect to get to that. Ioniq 5N is that. And then to me, the electric thing is a cherry on top based on how I feel about, EVs and stuff. That doesn't bother me. And it's actually kind of a little bit of a perk as well. So like, um, that's kind of, those are kind of my top two, as far as that goes. So anyway, yeah, that's kind of how I would play it. And I think actually someone did a video, I think it was Everyday Car, someone just did a comparison of Ioniq 5N with, I think, Pro Songway or GT4 Lusso. I saw it like popped up in my recommended feed. I was like, oh man, this video literally was made for me, but I haven't watched it yet. But it's like someone's talking about V12 practical Ferraris and the Ioniq 5N and comparing them. That's like, sign me up all day for that. So I gotta watch that one. But yeah. So anyway, fun question, Zachary. Thanks for asking. And so Stratus is saying, speaking of Sony, how about that network outage? I hadn't heard about that. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, crazy. And Nicholas says, hi, Matt and everyone. Drove some mountain roads today. Had a blast. That's awesome. Man, yeah, I miss mountain road blasts. I don't get a lot of chances to do a lot of fun driving these days, unless I'm on a media drive or something like that. But yeah, mountain roads are some of the most fun driving experiences I've ever had. Whole Cosmos says, any plans on getting another Bullet? Nope. Definitely can't afford a car that expensive right now, and honestly can't really justify any kind of fun car. I am still actually working on potentially getting a little backup car just to fill in the gaps, because we are a one car household whenever I don't have a press vehicle, which is very rare. I almost always have one, but I don't love the idea of not having a press car, and in those weeks having to share the one car. I always like having my wife having the ability to just take our daughter anywhere she needs to go, and if I needed to go out and film my review or I needed to go do something else, I don't like the idea of sharing a car, even just in case she or my daughter hurts herself and they got to drive her to urgent care or something. Like, I don't want to be like, oh, sorry, I'm out filming a review in the car. So like, I think I'm gonna see. I'm looking at how there's all these insanely cheap EV leases. Everyone's rushing to get these things, off dealer lots before the tax credit vanishes. And so I'm working on, I've been working on a couple different EVs, trying to get the cheapest thing possible, like dirt cheap. Like I'm talking like a sign and drive that is like, I'm putting no money down, I'm not doing anything, and the payment is minuscule. Just to like have it, even if it sits there in the garage for 3 months like the Bullet did, at least it's there, and it's a backup car, and it's EV, so I don't have to worry about wasting money on oil changes when I'm doing 500 or maybe 1,000 miles a year on the car. So I may get a replacement car, but it's not going to be like a fun sports car. I'm not going to do any content with it. It's literally just going to be something just to go to the airport and back with, or run an errand if I happen to not have a press car. So no fun cars on the horizon for me, unless the channel gets dramatically more views and I can afford to burn cash on that in the future. But, I'm always just so busy with press cars. That was the problem with the Bullet. It sat for months on end at times and didn't, after that first year, I didn't really do very much content on it because I'd already done all of main things I wanted to do, and I just didn't have time to go take it on adventures as much as I wanted to. And I don't envision that improving anytime soon. So hopefully someday I get to that point. But I think, for a while here, I'm still just kind of, just saving money, just trying to, improve our financial situation. That's why I got rid of the Bullet in the first place. And that's going to take more than, the Bullet's been gone now almost 10 months. It's going to take longer than that to kind of, improve things. The channel is actually doing a lot better here so far this year. I had my best January, and this is shaping up so far to be my best February ever. So I'm actually seeing some real improvement on the channel. That's very encouraging, and I appreciate the little support there in the emojis. Yeah, it's that's to me that's really exciting because I haven't seen real positive progress in a long time, and that's I'm very excited for that. So I'm hoping things do improve and I can get to that point of having something fun. If I were to get another car though, I mean, a lot of you, especially if you were on here, you know me. If I were able to get another fun car, I'd probably want to get something a little more practical. So I'd have four doors. I mean, a two door is fine. The Mustang would have been completely fine to put my daughter in the back, but I feel like I'd still love to try a GR Corolla someday if I could afford to again buy something fun and a little bit more expensive. That would probably be my next move. But there's a lot of other stuff out there too. So we'll just have to see what happens if Ioniq 5Ns depreciate like crazy. Maybe I pick up a used one of those in a few years for 30 grand or something. We'll see how far they fall, but but for now, just kind of hunkering down and just trying to see, and also I'm kind of also in a conserve mode because next year, we're about a year and a half away from Beth's car needing to be replaced, and we might just get another Mach-E or something else. We might even downgrade to something cheaper depending on again how things are. But I appreciate all the love and the support, guys. Thanks so much for all that. But so kind of focusing on my attention on making sure that we get another nice reliable, solid family car, because that's the car that does the most miles whenever we're not in press cars. So that's kind of the focus, is making sure the family's taken care of. And then once that's taken care of, then maybe there'll be some extra money to do something fun for myself. But the little cheap EVs that I'm also searching, and trying to work out deals on, they'll also be fun in their own ways. And, we'll see which one I end up landing on. If I land on anything at all, I may just end up backing out of any deal if, the numbers just aren't where I need them to be as far as being dirt cheap enough. But, there's always, I truly think you can have fun in just about anything as well. And I'm making sure that the things that I'm shopping aren't, completely boring. They have fun components to them and stuff. So yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. But thank you all so much for all the support there. Let me see. Strata says it's been high 60s, 70s here in Texas. Nice. It must be very nice to experience that in February. Colby says, did anyone else think it was Sunday? Yeah, I can understand the confusion there. Totally. Let me see. Luke says, my least favorite month of the year is January. It's cold, it's long, and after looking forward to seeing family on the holidays, nothing really to look forward to in January. That's true. I think for January, at least the first little bit of it, I always, typically have approached it like, January is like, well, it's a new year. And it's kind of fun being like, ooh, I'm like, writing checks and I'm putting the new year, or I'm putting the date on something. It's like, ooh, it's the new year. And, just kind of the hope of what a new year can bring. Obviously this has been a pretty chaotic year already so far, so that wore off pretty quickly. But it's that's kind of always the one little redeeming quality for me for January. But you're right, January is also pretty brutal, and you're coming off the holidays, so you're kind of thawing from all of that, and it's kind of a recovery month that isn't very soothing because it's so miserable for anyone that lives in a cold climate. So yeah, I can see that for sure. Harsha says, my least favorite months, December and January. People's brain cells go down to zero and they drive like there's no snow on the road. Yeah. Yeah. People especially December is usually, the first snow hits and everyone's like, I forgot how to drive in this. What do I do? And they just, spin in circles. So yeah, I completely understand. Let me see. Chase, oh yeah, I see that. Yeah, he already said gotta renew. Zachary says, how are the split out weekly update stories doing? They're kind of hit or miss. It really depends on the week, and it depends on the topic, just like the weekly updates really. They are definitely slower burns, as far as the growth of them, because again, those videos I deliberately say do not show this in the subscription feed. Do not notify subscribers of these videos so that you're not getting bombarded with 5 videos in a row on Friday afternoon or whatever. So those videos are just completely dependent on the algorithm. And so as a result, like, it's kind of crazy because like they get like 0 views, and then like it takes like a day to get 100 views on them, which I'm used to obviously getting a lot more than that in the first day. So that's a little, disconcerting, but I know that again, it's in the algorithm's hands and they are searching for the right viewer for that video. And some weeks they've done better than others. The week when I was talking about the new STI S210, from Subaru, like that week, it was all that Tokyo Auto Salon stuff, and all those videos actually did pretty well. It's a little bit of a learning curve. I've found that if they are super short, like under a minute, like I did an Aston Martin video, like that just like got nowhere views wise. And it seems like longer ones do better. So that kind of informs which videos or which segments I pick to make individual videos in the future, I think. But it really is just like the algorithm being fluky. And sometimes I'm like, okay, well, this could do well, and then it doesn't. But like some of these things, like for example, this past Friday, I was talking about 2025 Forester Hybrid. Again, us enthusiasts, you already watched the weekly update. You already know this. You're not going to be one of those random people that gets recommended that video, most likely. And the average person, it's going to take time for them to build that awareness and have people like, oh, wait, there's a hybrid Forester. There's people that are going to be figuring that out all this year. Same thing, like, I did a separate video on Forester Wilderness, which is a 2026 model year vehicle. The average Subaru buyer is not even searching for what's 2026 yet. We're just beginning 2025 and everyone's in the 2025 mindset. So like, it's probably might not even be till the end of this year before people start actually finding that video and then being, oh, wow, this is, this new thing that they're learning about 9 months later. So I think that's kind of the promise of those videos as well, is unlike the weekly updates where those topics get buried and it's only the headline thing that gets views, with these clips, even if they have a slower start or almost no start at all, I have faith that some of that stuff eventually will get pushed and the algorithm will find audiences for those. And I have videos every once in a while where it gets like no views for a long time, and then all of a sudden, I don't know, the algorithm just picks it up and it just shoots off like a rocket. And it makes no sense. I mean, I don't know if I already mentioned this or not, but like there's a video from, this would have been 13 or 14 years ago, of whenever that dude in blue came and stayed with me at my parents' house in Pittsburgh here. He came for the one hangar party we did with Pittsburgh Cars and Coffee many years ago. We just were cruising around downtown Pittsburgh, like late at night, and we were going through one of the tunnels that Pittsburgh is famous for. And I was in my BRZ and I just literally like had my handy cam pointed out the window, and David was in Smurf, back whenever it was, just basically simple bolt-ons, the early days of Smurf there. That was the week that I reviewed it. Anyway, he like just did an acceleration in a tunnel. It's like a maybe 18-second video or something. And, it got, I don't know, a couple thousand views or something in, the first couple of weeks or whatever, 13 years ago, and then sat dormant for over a decade. And then like towards late last year, for some reason, the algorithm just thought it was the best thing ever and pushed it to a ton of people, strangely to search. Apparently when people search on YouTube, Mustang GT sound, that's like one of the top hits now, or at least according to the analytics. I didn't actually search it myself to see, but that's what they're saying, is it's all coming from search. Tons of people are searching Mustang GT sound. That video comes up and it's an 18-second video. Now I think that video is over like, I don't know, a couple 100,000 views or something. It's comical. And so anyway, long story short, but the algorithm can be fluky like that. So, it might be something that doesn't take off for a long time, even a decade or more, and then could eventually be a nice moneymaker. Like that little Mustang clip now, makes me, $1 a day or $2 a day or whatever off those views, because it's continuing to get like 2,000 or maybe 1,000 or 2,000 views a day now and keeps feeding that to people. And that's the kind of stuff that adds up over time. Like, again, $1 or $2 a day might not sound like much, but when you stack hundreds and hundreds of videos and hundreds of reviews, that's where, I mean, if even every single review I've done made $1 a day, I'd be able to afford that GR Corolla or keep the Bullet or whatever, because they don't even do that. But, over almost 800 reviews now, like that's the goal. And that's always been my goal, is make these evergreen and keep the views coming in and build this growing mound of views and therefore money, and hopefully have it be a more lucrative career as time goes on. Unfortunately, it hasn't always played out like that, and there's been a lot of stuff that has just fizzled and died and never does get views. And so that's really the goal of how I pick the cars I pick, is like, okay, this could be hot right now. Is it going to be hot in the future? And this is why I've been doing some of the used car reviews as well, and some of those are super hot because it's like, what are people searching for right now that are going to be searched for a while? And for some of that, it's the used stuff that people are going to come back to for years and years and years. And that's some of those greatest hits that I've been trying to kind of hone in on and do more of. Anyway, but sorry for the long explanation, but thanks so much, Zachary, for the question. And but yeah, I think the weekly update stories are something that are worthwhile because they take so little time to do. And I think it's not hurting the channel, and it seems like it is potentially helping a little bit. So I'm going to keep on doing it for now. And Chase is asking, what are your thoughts on the newest gen Camry? I'm just not too sure of the new standard hybrid only drive system. I love the Camry. I did a full review, did a week with video on it as well, and I really love Camry. I mean, if you're nervous about hybrid tech, I think Toyota is the safest company to take a chance on with hybrid stuff, because they've been doing it for 25 plus years now with Prius. Toyota knows how to make a good solid hybrid system. And it's also, it's pretty easy as far as battery replacement. I think even, my buddy Chris Fix did a video on replacing the battery in his Prius. It's pretty simple, pretty safe. I believe those batteries have a 10-year warranty on them anyway. So, long coverage. Cameras are bulletproof. They really are. And the hybrid ones have stood the test of time. This is why you see, taxi cabs that are, Camrys and other Toyota hybrids in general. They're indestructible. Those guys are putting, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of miles on these things, and they're not missing a beat. That's why they keep picking them. So I think Camry hybrid is probably the safest hybrid bet, alongside RAV4 and others like that. That those Toyota hybrid systems are fantastic. I know, again, it is, like a newer gen hybrid system, but, Toyota knows that people expect excellence from them. And yes, maybe they had a misstep here with the assembly of, some of these, twin turbo V6 truck motors and stuff. But even that was just like crap on the assembly line. It wasn't the actual engineering that was flawed. So I have full faith in Toyota's engineering still. I have full faith that they still know what they're doing. They know that people expect, that out of them, and they engineer accordingly, because that is the most near and dear thing to Toyota, is their reputation for reliability, and that is the last thing that they're going to let die. So I wouldn't doubt a Camry hybrid one bit. And I think there's actually, I can't remember, I think someone picked one up recently here in the live stream that's liking it so far as well. But yeah, I think they're great. Chad says, it seems like Mazda gets everything right as far as sporty luxury reliability looks. Why do they miss the mark with room for everyday American buyers, excluding the larger SUVs? I think that's really the thing, is that, for the vehicles where they have an eye on the American market first and foremost, they do get it mostly right, and they do nail even the room aspect for the most part. But I think Mazda kind of has the old school Japanese car maker problem of, having to engineer a vehicle for multiple markets. And, with Japanese cars, you kind of have limits as far as the streets, and, there's just not as many size demands there. And same thing goes for range. You don't have as far of places to drive. This is the same phenomenon in Europe. I saw it, like, even Trump this week was wondering, why don't Europeans buy more American cars? It's like, because they don't fit on the roads. That's why. I mean, I was just in Italy last year. Everyone's got tiny hatchbacks, and a Ford Ranger, the single Ford Ranger I saw on the road, looked enormous because the roads were, built 1,000 years ago. And I mean, I remember even back in like 2011, I was in a rented Volkswagen Polo, right-hand drive, manual. Yeah, I think it was a manual transmission, if I remember correctly. And trying, I think it was right-hand drive. Maybe that was the Mini that was right-hand drive that I had in the UK, obviously. Maybe the Polo was left-hand drive. But anyway, I was in a tiny Volkswagen Polo, which is, for anyone that's unfamiliar, it's smaller than a Golf. And I was driving through the streets of Milan And it was like, even that I felt huge. Like I was like, mostly competing with mopeds and stuff, because that's the smart thing to do if you're in one of those cities. You're not in a car, you're walking or you're on a moped or something or a bike. But even that felt huge. And it's like you physically couldn't fit half of the American vehicles down any of these streets in Milan. The main drag, sure, but like any of the side streets, forget it. Like it just wouldn't fit. And that's, so getting back to the whole issue with the Mazda thing, it's just, Mazda 3 was engineered for Japan. We get it as well. But, that's kind of the problem is, obviously they can make it bigger. There's large vehicles, they have forerunners in Japan. So I mean, there's, you can make bigger stuff, but again, they're listening to their home market and what those buyers say they want and what those buyers need and what is the size of those buyers. Typically, Japanese people are, a little bit shorter typically than, larger Americans oftentimes. Obviously there's exceptions, everyone's different, but as just overall as a whole, you have usually less space demands. This is why K cars work, over there for other reasons as well. But that's why that stuff's so popular. Small roads, people that typically aren't needing as much space, and all those types of things, are kind of what drives that. So I think that's kind of, it's always about context. It's always looking beyond just our circumstances and saying, okay, well, what are the other factors here that might be at play? And I think that's really the biggest thing there for that. It's tough though. I'm not envious of these car companies. They have to juggle, what do we do? Do we do something dedicated to the American market like many of these Japanese companies have done? Same thing with European companies. Volkswagen gives us a long wheelbase version of the ID Buzz, but not the small one because, they need the small one over there to fit in those European roads. But here, more space the better. Same goes, we get a giant Passat, they get smaller ones, these types of things. It's some companies have just found it makes sense to do it that way if you want to actually have a vehicle that's a success. But anyway, apologies for those waiting here for the super chats, and thanks Grant for also gifting a membership. I really appreciate that, and happy to see Cesar was able to get that as well. But Luke, thank you for a super chat. He says my custom vehicle would be a 2025 Toyota 4Runner body, Mazda CX-90 interior, Ford a 5-liter V8 powertrain. That's a cool combo. That's really cool. I mean, I'm curious if anyone's going to swap engines in the 4Runner, because I know there's people that aren't excited about that motor in it. I think it's a great motor for what it's worth, but excuse me, putting the 5-liter though from the Ford would be very, very fun. It's kind of surprising. I mean, maybe we will see it from Ford this year. They always refuse putting the V8 in the Bronco because they're like, oh, well, it's better with, the 4-cylinder and the 6-cylinder. But I'm like, on their homepage now, if you go on the Ford's website, at least last time I checked, it was like, we're keeping the V8 legacy alive with the F-150 and, them really leaning into the fact that you can't get the V8 in the Ram anymore and really, kicking Ram while they're down, which sounds like Ford. But, I kind of wonder if they're going to kind of lean into that more and say, okay, well, now you can get the V8 in the Bronco. You're not going to be able to get it anymore in the Wrangler. Like, haha, and if they're going to try and lean into that more or not, I don't know. But that'd be, yeah, a V8 and a 4Runner sounds so fun with the CX-90 interior. That'd be awesome. Great combo, Luke. And thank you again for the super chat. And Chad, thank you for a super chat as well. He says, it seems most self-drive features put you in the far left lane. Safety/congestion concerns are manufacturer's fault. I hadn't heard that. Anytime I use Super Cruise, it's very good with lane discipline of, getting out of that lane. Sometimes Super Cruise will let me hang out in the middle lane, but I have never sat in the left lane of Super Cruise. It is always trying to find a way to get over, and it understands the left lane is for passing. And I know even like Nissan system, I kind of talked about this and highlighted this in my weekly update late last year with Nissan's Pro Pilot Assist, I think is what it's called, the 2.1 version of that. It is kind of like hands-free, but it also, whenever you're in the hands-on mode, it will tell you, like, you have completed a pass, move over. Which I love. It's a shame that version of that Nissan system is like a $3,000 option and nobody is going to option it on. Not a single person. It'll be on like the 10 press cars that they spec it with. And then it's never going to ever be put on a car again until they make it way cheaper or standard. But yeah, that's I've never actually had it do left lane. Maybe Tesla's system does. I don't know. I know their system has like that assertive mode, or maybe it got removed. I can't keep track, but maybe the Tesla system lets you do it. I don't think any of the others that I know are programmed to do left lane hogging, because manufacturers, one, would not want that, because that actually is illegal in some states. And so if you let a system sit in the left lane, obviously, they can put the blame on the driver and say, well, you should have taken over. But like, I don't think they would, again, unless you're Tesla, I don't think they would knowingly program a system to violate a potential law. So I'm pretty sure they get out of the left lane if at all possible, if it's safe. I could be wrong. Maybe there's something I'm missing, but I haven't heard that. But let me see. Kyle, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate that. And thanks so much, Kyle, every week for your support. And happy to see some familiar faces there, as well as I think some new ones too, able to get the memberships. And thanks so much. I appreciate that. Anyway, let me see. Other member questions here. I am getting a little bit behind, so I'm going to skip some of the non-member ones for now, and maybe try and come back to them later if I can, but I don't want to get too far behind. I want to make sure they get that priority answering here. So where were we here? So yeah, we definitely are falling behind. So I'm going to get caught up here. And those of you who if I missed your non-member questions, feel free to ask them a little bit later. I mean, don't spam, but if I have gotten a little bit more caught up, feel free to ask again, and I'll be able to, probably catch up with it better that way too. But let me see. So Kyle says, I rewatched your Fusion Sport and Regal GX videos. I miss those sporty sedans. Me too. So Fusion Sport was a little bit of a disappointment. I just, kind of wished it felt a little lighter and a little more agile. But I think looking back on Fusion Sport, it was really a cool combo. I kind of wonder why there wasn't more aftermarket support for that, because I feel like that could have been, kind of a really fun combo for enthusiasts. And I feel like it didn't really ever get the credit it deserved, even if it did feel a little less sporty than it should have. In my opinion, I think it still had some potential, especially with a few mods. I think it could have been a lot more fun. But Regal GX, I know it's another one. So sad. Or the GS, those things, again, torque vectoring all-wheel drive system, really actually so good. I actually looked up what the prices of those went, we're going for a few months ago, and they actually kind of have kind of steadied. They dropped, pretty quick initially, like any other Buick. But they're like holding pretty solid in like the mid to low 20s from what I saw, which is actually still a really good price for a V6, something you can't get very much these days. Regular torque converter, torque vectoring all-wheel drive in arguably a good-looking sedan package. Not the most impressive interior, but it's fine. And I think it's actually a really solid buy. It's a V6 from GM. I mean, that's a fairly solid combo, I'd say, as well. I don't know. I think that's another slept-on car. So glad you're able to find those and rewatch them, and glad you enjoyed them. And Car says, thanks for the heads up about that IAHS article. I appreciate learning about those topics. Well, thanks. I'm glad someone appreciates my weird fascination with car safety. But let me see. Kyle says that Carvana had a 2020 Regal GS with just around 12,000 miles, but the steering wheel buttons looked almost chewed up. It's so weird how that happens. I often see that when I'm shopping, when I'm window shopping, I guess I should say, for Jaguar F-types. The amount of those where the buttons got so scratched up and worn, the only thing I can think of is it is people that either don't cut their nails, or it is like, ladies that own them that have long nails and they're always like scratching at stuff or something. Because otherwise I'm like, why are all these buttons wearing away? I guess I haven't kept a car long enough recently to experience this. Because the Bullet was, about 5 years old, almost 6 when obviously it was only 20,000 miles, but like the buttons were fine on that. But like the amount of cars I've seen with like worn buttons when I'm looking at used listings is just like crazy. It's an interesting phenomenon. But anyway, MDKN says, checked out the new Volvo EX30 and 2025 and a half XC90 earlier this week. The XC90 was all right, but not super exciting. But man, that EX30 surprised me. Interesting. So I'm trying to figure out, so you saw an EX30 in the States. I know Alex on Autos bought one, but from my understanding, that wasn't allowed to come to the States because of the Chinese EV tariffs that Biden put in last year. And and that EX30s weren't supposed to be coming to the States until the Belgium factory got up and running, which I thought wasn't happening until late this year. Maybe I'm out of the loop on EX30. I didn't watch Alex's video on how he got his. I just assumed he had bought like a press car or something, but maybe they're actually at dealers. Interesting. That's cool. We have a Volvo dealer nearby, and I'm gonna have to roll by there sometime in the next few days and see if they have an EX30, because I'm curious, because that was, I don't think it would work for us as a family vehicle because it's probably too small. But Beth was actually kind of interested in the EX30 to potentially replace the Mach-E. It could definitely be a downgrade from a space standpoint. I hate not having gauges, so I might not be into it. And the videos I've seen kind of poking around it, because I haven't sat in one or anything, but it seems like, I mean, you said it surprised you. I'm kind of curious. I see you did say the sound system was honestly incredible for being literally a sound bar integrated into the dash. It really shocked me, and the bass hit deep. Interesting. I'm curious. Yeah. So, what else impressed you about it? Because it seems like they got a little greedy with the cost cutting in it. Obviously, they had to hit that super aggressive price point. But yeah, I appreciate all the support too, the 100s there. But I'm kind of curious what you thought of EX30 more than just the stereo, because yeah, I'm gonna have to check one out. Yeah, I'll have to see if they have one at the dealer near me here. Thanks for the heads up on that. I'm gonna look into it. You got my curiosity peaked here. And let me see. MBKN also says your 1080p seems to run really well on my 4K TV. 4K would be a nice upgrade though. Okay, well, thanks for letting me know you watched it on a TV too. That's good to know. And it seems like more and more people are doing that. So that's why I've kind of been looking into that. But Carr says his least favorite month of the year is probably February or March, especially before daylight saving time begins. It's too cold and dark for me. In contrast, my favorite weather month is July. Yeah, I think that's a safe one for everyone. Yeah, July is always usually a lot of fun. As long as I guess if you live in like Florida, July can be pretty oppressive, I suppose. So again, it comes down to where you live. Same goes for Arizona and all those kinds of places. But let me see. Chad says, went with my mom and her new Maverick today to pick up a lawnmower from Lowe's. We could have fit so much more. It's kind of funny how people think they need an F-250 for much better driving experience. I know. It's really funny. I kind of call it the mattress phenomenon, because there was someone that I came across. I don't want to give away because it's just kind of an acquaintance that we know that purchased a Tacoma, and literally in their Facebook post said, I may need to move a mattress sometime in the next year or so. So I figured I better get a Tacoma. And obviously, like most of us probably understand the absurdity of that. But that is like, there's a lot of people genuinely like, well, maybe I'll need to move someday. It'd be nice to have a truck, just in case. And dealing with the daily crappy fuel economy, the daily compromises of any kind of body on frame truck for that matter. Obviously, a lot of people really enjoy that. And if you enjoy that, by all means, have a blast, knock yourself out. But for the people that are just like trying to future proof themselves in some way, it just really seems like, do you know that like U-Haul is a thing? You can rent a Silverado to move anything you want, and it's very easy to do. I actually, and I can speak from experience because I don't know how many of you have these like buy nothing pages that are on Facebook, but someone like literally was giving away a really nice dining room table, and it was a week that I didn't have a truck press vehicle or anything, and it's like, wow, this table is literally free. It's super nice, and we put our name in for it, and we were selected to be the one that got this really nice dining room table. It's like, well, how are we gonna get it home? And it's like, well, I'll just go rent a U-Haul for literally like 2 hours. And that's what I did. I rented a U-Haul Silverado. It was like a base model Silverado, which was kind of fun. I should have probably kept it longer and done a review on it. But like a base Silverado, I literally went, picked up the free table, dropped it off at our house, drove straight back to the U-Haul place. He's like, oh, didn't you just leave? I'm like, yep, that's all I needed it for. And it was like, I think it was $50 after all the fees and stuff, which, $50 for a pickup truck for a few hours isn't nothing, but for a table that, is worth several $100s, or in the case of a moving day or something, like, spend the couple $100 and save yourself, a bunch of money on gas for the years, before and after that, need that you have. But there's a lot of Americans that truly, like, they have towing packages with pristine tow hitches that have never been used. All that kind of stuff is definitely mystifying to me. But glad you got the Maverick there, and it's working well for you. I think that's why Mavericks are so popular, though, because I think there are more and more people realizing, like, yes, maybe I like having a truck bed or the idea of a truck bed, but I also, want to have comfort. And, the Maverick being so cheap really helps convince people that maybe would have gone for a Ridgeline if it was cheaper, but now with the Maverick being so cheap, it's just like, instant sell for them. And Luke says, my brother told me that the tariff will not affect my Maverick. My Plan B vehicles were between Acura Integra, A-Spec manual, or 2025 Camry XLE. Yeah, well, thankfully, the tariffs have been dropped, at least now for the next month. We will see what happens. But, it sounds like, we reached a good deal there with Mexico, potentially, and that's where, Maverick comes from. So you should be good. And yeah, I was very relieved when I heard those tariffs got dropped here this week for the whole industry, and for you as well, Luke, and others. Yeah, it's not something any of us want to have to deal with, for sure. And I see Cara says, yeah, he loves his Maverick as well. It's awesome you're enjoying yours. And Harsher says, if there ever comes a point where cars get too big and too dangerous, how would you get car companies to downsize cars or even change the infrastructure to support smaller vehicles like mini cars and scooters and motorcycles? It really is a tough situation of what do you do? It's kind of one of those chicken and the egg problems of, like, everything needs to change at the same time. Otherwise you have this mismatch of either people being really brave, having the small stuff and waiting for everyone else to catch up, or but the American way is to have an arms race and just have everyone get bigger and bigger vehicles. And, I think honestly, the only way to engineer ourselves out of this is to literally, like, those like bridges they make for like deer in some parts of the world, instead of having deer just be roadkill like it is in most parts of America, like other countries have built like little bridges for deer to like walk over. I think there are some around here, or some in America as well. But, I think like having completely separated passageways or roadways for cars, as they just are going to get bigger and bigger. That's certainly going to be the case for the next 4 years at least. And then, again, average age of a vehicle on the road is 12 years. So, it's going to take over 12 years for everything that everyone buys in the next 4 years to age out. So we're talking, into the 2040s before we actually see cars ever downsize. And that's assuming some radical culture and political change in 2028, which is far from guaranteed as well. I don't see cars ever getting smaller in America for a long time. So that's why it's like, this isn't going to improve on its own. Let's get pedestrians, let's get scooters, let's get bikes out of the way. Bike lanes are not even enough, I don't think. You need to have actual walls, or you need to have, and they'd have to be big walls and heavy walls to, defend against the EVs and the giant trucks. But like, I think getting them up in elevated, roadways or elevated little tunnels or something, or underground, whatever you got to do, but they cannot be on the same playing field level wise as vehicles, because there's just no way to make it safe enough. It's just you're gonna have to have NASCAR walls for cars, and then have everyone else be safe on the other side that way. But that's really your only hope. So I don't really have any faith in cars, or in cities getting any safer. And no one's going to make an investment like that. No one's going to care about pedestrians and bikes and scooters for the next 4 years. So it's just going to be literally, you're on your own. Make sure that you're always aware of your surroundings whenever you're walking or riding or whatever, because no one's going to be there to help you, unfortunately. But let me see. Vishal says, took our Highlander in for service yesterday, and they had a Crown Signia inside. Was impressed how nice it was inside. Nice. Yeah, I'm glad more and more people are starting to experience the Crown Signia. It seems like most dealers are starting to get one or two. Again, I saw one out in the wild a couple of weeks ago for the first time. It's a great car. I love it. And, the views on that Week With video kind of surprised me. A lot of people watched that and are interested in that. And so that gives me hope that, maybe Toyota will actually make more of those if they see that is actually more popular than they were expecting. I think they're only planning to build like 16,000 in the first year, and I think maybe go up to 20 or so for the second year here. So, excuse me, I don't know if it actually turns out to be a little bit of a hit, maybe they will, amp up production. I don't know, but glad you got to check it out. And let me see. Uh, Estevanov says, yeah, TE-37s are popular for a reason. They have become very ubiquitous, but you'll probably be really happy if you get a set. Thanks for your feedback there. And MDKN, yeah, saying about his honest opinion of them. But let me see. Jazz says, I don't like wireless CarPlay. I want to decide when I go into CarPlay whether to plug in or not without going into infotainment. Mercedes is changing to only having wireless. Interesting. I didn't know Mercedes had changed to that. I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess it just automatically connects. You could manually disconnect. I think a lot of cars that I do sync up with, they oftentimes will say, do you want to automatically connect every time or just this time, or do wired only? Like Toyota, I know always gives you the option. Do you want to do wireless? Do you want to do wired? Do you want to only do it this time or every time? I think that customization is very important because there are people that, have that. And for example, with Mercedes, yeah, the idea is you put your phone on the wireless charging mat, but if you're running nav and you're wireless charging, phones get hot. And, I've had, a couple of times in the past, many years ago where, my phone would actually kind of like almost, freeze up because it just overheated. And so I don't think that's a great, solution. And oftentimes some of these slower wireless charging pads can't keep up with the demands of some of the navigation apps power wise, and you actually end up losing power over the course of a road trip. So wired is definitely what you want to do on a road trip most of the time. So that's weird. I hadn't heard about Mercedes doing that. That is definitely not a good idea in my opinion. And I agree. There should always be an option to do wired. Or at the very least, I know some cars, if they do have wireless, you can still plug in and still kind of have that ability to turn it on or off. But yeah, I agree. It shouldn't be automatic. And let me see. I see Boozer's quickly asking, are you going to go to our auto show downtown later this week and do any videos? I'm not planning on going to the auto show in Pittsburgh here. It is this weekend for anyone who's in Pittsburgh. This coming weekend here. It's always over Valentine's weekend, which also is not a good weekend because, it's usually I'm busy doing Valentine's stuff and all that. But yeah, I won't be going. Typically, I haven't gone to the auto show for many years. The only time I ever go is if a friend or family member is car shopping. That's really what it's nice for, because then I can walk around with them and say, okay, well, here's this, here's that, and point out things that maybe they would have missed. And so I have gone in the past, just doing that occasionally, but I haven't been in a few years. And usually there's nothing there. It's all stuff that I've already filmed. I've already, covered most of the time. There's almost never something there. They did invite me for like the media day or whatever one time. This was probably 10 years ago at this point, and there's really nothing to film there, even back then. So, the Pittsburgh Auto Show just seems like it keeps shrinking anyway. So it's not worth it for me from a content standpoint. So yeah, there's no real reason for me to go. Most of that stuff I've already been in, driven, whatever. Humble brag, I guess, but just for me, it doesn't have the value that it has for the average person that obviously doesn't have the access that I do. So I think it's great. They still keep doing it for sure. It's a really nice, zero pressure way to check out cars without a salesman breathing down your neck. And I love them. Let me see. Two's in the house. Thanks for stopping by, Two. Thank you also for the very generous super chat. He says, Peter's back. Don't have a heart attack. Catching camo cars are black, but Two's video recording skills are whack. Better stick to writing tracks or bars for Matt. If you mention the best, better mention Peter. No cap. Yeah, man. One of these days, Two is going to become a famous rapper, and we'll all be like, man, remember when he was hanging out in Matt Moran's live streams here, and now he's going to be this big famous rapper, and he's going to have beef with Drake, and we'll be also impressed and be like, I was the hipster that knew about Two before he was famous. It's going to happen too. Got to keep writing those tracks. You're on a roll here, man. Seriously, the fact you come up with this stuff so quickly, like you actually are talented, man. I really think you are. And so thanks for stopping by, and I hope you're doing well. But yeah, Lil Twos, hurry up. Someone trademark that. MDKN says, yeah, definitely. Telling you what, you're going to see him on a billboard someday, and it's going to be awesome. So I should screenshot the Discord server back whenever he was posting his little rhymes in there would have been. I'll be like, man, I got the rhymes from Two first before he got that giant recording contract. But anyway, thank you so much too for stopping by. Hope you're doing well, and yeah, thanks again. And let me see here. So Zachary says, hilarious answer, just picking the Ferrari. Yeah, that's me. One day, I keep buying my lottery tickets. Maybe someday I'll be able to get those dream cars. Jazz says, I saw a man at the gas station in a Ferrari and asked him why he drives a Ferrari, and he told me less expensive than a mistress. True story, happened yesterday. That is funny. I've heard similar kinds of of things like that in the past. Yeah, it's yeah, I mean, a lot of people, it is a nice escape for some people, just cars in general, and it's kind of just keeps their focused, keeps them from getting distracted or whatever. Yeah, it's funny, but that's cool. You saw a Ferrari yesterday. It's always, I don't see very many around here. We don't have a Ferrari dealer nearby if you need servicing for a Ferrari in Pittsburgh. There is like a used place, but if you want an actual Ferrari dealership experience, you got to go to either Columbus, Ohio, which is about 3.5 hours away, or you got to go to DC, which is about 4-ish hours away. Or you got to go to Philly, which is 5 hours. So like, that's why there's very few Ferraris in Pittsburgh, sadly. But like, I have been seeing more and more Bentleys, because we got a Bentley dealer like 20 minutes away. But even like Aston Martin, the closest Aston dealer is in Cleveland, which is a little over 2 hours away. So yeah, that's why it's like, I get so excited seeing Astons and Ferraris. Ironically, two of my favorite brands, but like no one around here has either of those. We also don't have like Lamborghini dealers or anything, but yeah, it'd be nice to see more exotic dealers around here. But let me see. Jazz says, after the weekly update yesterday, I thought Matt might have time to shave today, but he didn't. No, and I'm kind of trying out. So I've been kind of toying with the idea of just kind of having like permanent stubble in a way, because I kind of like having the look of the stubble, but I don't like the itchiness of growing it out more. I don't know, how it looks to everybody else, but that's kind of what I've been rolling with for a little bit here. But a lot of times it is just like I tell my family, even sometimes, like, you can tell how busy I've been that week by how long my facial hair is, because sometimes it's like I literally like don't even want to spend the 20 minutes to shave or whatever, because I'm just like, always maximizing my time. I'm an efficiency freak when it comes to just being like, well, I could be doing something else, and so I just don't bother. But I've been trying to kind of make it a little less scraggly recently here, because whenever I don't maintain it, it doesn't even look like it's an intentional beard. It just looks like I'm like, just got hit by a bus or something instead. But anyway, let me see. So MDCan says, hold up, a car enthusiast said he'd take elements of an Elantra and put it into a car. Don't let the internet hear that, they'll have a meltdown. Yeah. I do love the Elantra though. It's fantastic. Zachary says, all-wheel drive GR Integra N would be sick. Yeah, that'd be awesome. So yeah, glad you appreciate that, Zachary. MDCan says, I love my Kona N, best car I've ever owned and the most fun I'd ever think I'd have, especially in a Hyundai. Yeah, I mean, I love them. I'm so sad they got rid of them so quickly, and we haven't seen a new one here, and doubt we will at this point. But I'm glad you grabbed one of the ones while they lasted there, and hope you enjoy it to the max. He says, I've strangely taken it to work a little more recently when it wasn't snowing, just because I wanted to rip around in the fun car. And that's all. Also, yeah, I completely wholeheartedly support that. I can appreciate keeping cars nice and wanting to preserve, your favorite car. But, I think obviously it gets expensive as, you get into the later years of a car's life, but with enough money and care and patience, you can keep anything running, I mean, even if you got an engine swap or you got to rebuild a motor or whatever, like if you just love driving a Kona N all the time, drive a Kona N all the time. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed. Have your fun while you can have it. Deal with the Kona N. If it's got 200,000 miles and, it needs a major service or something, deal with it then. But I firmly am a believer in live in the moment and enjoy things in the moment. Yeah, it might not set you up for having a pristine Kona N, forever, but you have your fun, you have those memories you made. And to me, an odometer reading that's high is it's a reflection of all the memories, all the fun, all the enjoyment. And I think that's, in my opinion, the way I've never wanted to preserve the Bullet, for example. My goal was to put 200,000 miles on that thing. Obviously, I never, got beyond 20, but that was the goal. I was not intending to, make that car a garage queen. Because I wanted to, live life in that car. I wanted to experience every ounce of experience I could in that car. And thankfully the new owner, I think, is, still enjoying it and still, doing that, for me. And I'm, going to be living vicariously through them here for the future. But, that's kind of, again, the way I prefer to enjoy these cars. Obviously some stuff you have restrictions in the wintertime and stuff, so it's understandable, but if you can drive it, drive it. That's my vote. And Darnell says IndyCar promos are so well done this year by Fox. Nice. Yeah, I don't follow Indy. I was at the Indy 500, a couple of years ago. Loved it. Super fun in person. But just, yeah, I wish I had more time to follow motorsports because it would be fun, but I don't follow any of it. But I'd love to someday. And MD Can says, yeah, Matt, why don't you get an EV? Hyundai Ioniq 5s are basically being given away. Faulkner Hyundai Philly was doing $199 a month for 36 months on them for a brief period. Yeah, I have been looking into Ioniq 5s. The problem with those is dealers they're doing some aggressive deals, but it's a lot of times you have to put a lot of money down. And whenever I've asked them what's an actual like zero down sign and drive on those, I haven't seen anything less than $300 a month, and $300 a month is not cheap enough for me to pull the trigger on it. I mean, it is a very nice car. And if you actually need a car you're driving daily, it's a hell of a deal. $300 a month. Absolutely fully supported. But for my use of, again, driving maybe 1,000 miles a year, it's not, I don't, $300 a month is too much to spend on a backup car that's going to sit there most of the time. So, but if you are shopping apps, I mean, I've said this in the past couple of months now, ever since the election, if you are wanting an EV, you got to get it, before these tax credits go away, and lease it. Don't buy it because they depreciate like crazy, all of them. But lease it and get the tax credit while you can. And yeah, the deals are never going to be better than they are right now. I firmly believe we will never see a better deal. Maybe we'll see cheaper EVs that eventually will get down to a lower price point. But as far as getting a $50,000 or $45,000 car for $300 a month, read the room. I mean, you can't even get a Corolla for $300 a month. Like a base Corolla with zero down would cost you $300 a month. And you're getting that for an Ioniq 5, which has got 300 some horsepower, all-wheel drive, almost 300 miles of range. One of the fastest recharge times under 100 grand. I mean, it's a hell of a deal. Absolutely. Unfortunately, it's just still a little too pricey for me. So I'm shopping stuff even cheaper than that. But yeah, they're great. I highly recommend Ioniq 5s too. Great cars. Darnell says, family wise, if you can find a reasonable RAV4 CRV CX5, you'd be set for so many years. Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the things we're considering too. Whenever it comes time to replace Beth's Mach-E, I think she loves the electric driving experience, and I do as well. Just even pulling out into traffic and stuff, it's so much more confidence inspiring having instant power. And I think she's really kind of gotten, almost spoiled by that, as have I, that it's one of those things that's really hard to go backwards from. And she just always was annoyed by transmissions being slow to respond and power ramping up slowly. She had that, annoyance with her Ford Fiesta, even her Mercedes C300s. She had two of those. She really liked them, but, she hated having to wait for the transmission to kick down and all that. And all of that, like, 3 to 5 second waiting period of like, I'm requesting more power and I'm waiting for a downshift, and then the downshift happens, and then the acceleration happens, and then the turbo has to kick in, and then now I'm going where I want to go, versus, that happened 5 seconds sooner in the Mach-E. So I think, she's basically set on EV for life, I think. Plug-in hybrid is a possibility as well, like, RAV4 Prime or something like that, because she'd have that electric experience. And if we were going to do more road trips or, a lot of high mileage driving, I could see something like that making sense and possibly going to a plug-in hybrid. But I really love not having to do the oil changes and all the other, EV perks. Never pumping gas in the middle of these frigid winter months is really nice, and those types of things. Yeah, so... but yeah, I've always loved RAV4, CRV, CX5, all great vehicles. Highly recommend them, if they fit what you're looking for. MD Can says only no, because one of my Kona N buddies is a salesman there. Nice. Well, yeah, that's great that he's able to give you the inside scoop on those. I'm curious how much down that was for that deal. Faulkner has good deals. I was chatting with Faulkner. Actually, they were one of the dealers I was working with. I actually almost made a deal with Faulkner on something else, and then they kind of screwed up the deal. I won't get into it now. I will probably do like a tell-all video once if I decide on something and actually get something. If that happens, I will probably tell my whole story of the past month and a half, and how I got to where I think I'm going, and how everything played out. But there's some a few little funny tidbits in there that I'll be including, as far as, because I haven't really shopped for a car in a while. Even with the Mach-E, it was just placing an online order and finding a dealer that wasn't doing markups at the time, and then we just took delivery, and it was very undramatic. But like, this is the first time in a long time I've been like calling around to dealerships and dealing with salesmen, and it was a nice reminder of what the average car buyer goes through, honestly, because it's something, again, I've been spoiled with not having to deal with, and being like, man, like, this is why everyone wants to get rid of dealers. No offense to your friend, it's a salesman. My brother-in-law is a salesman. I know many salesmen. There's a lot of really great ones out there. There's some good dealerships out there, but man, there's a lot of bad ones as well. And I've encountered a lot of, nice people, but a lot of incompetence, a lot of one hand not knowing what the other hand's doing, and no one having good communication. They're not communicating with me, and not communicating with the other manager or the other salesman. Just so many things where I'm like, I'm doing your job for you, and just so much stuff, where it's, yeah, that's why, I mean, again, Tesla's just been brilliant for not doing the dealership thing all these years, and everyone else, trying to weasel their way out of it. I completely expect dealerships to go away eventually, because it's usually not a good experience. Again, there's some good people, but unfortunately, it seems like they're few and far between, sadly. But let me see. I appreciate the celebration there for the discussion earlier. And I see, sorry, I missed a couple other things. It doesn't notify me sometimes about these super chats. But Jordan, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, Nissan and Microsoft possible resurgence for both. I mean, that's possible. Whenever I heard US tech company, and especially a tech company that's got enough money to burn on an entire car company, I immediately thought of Apple. Apple had the Apple Car program that they tried once and then canceled, and then brought it back and then canceled it again. It's clear that they wanted to be in the car space. I don't know if they still do, but Apple, I can't remember what they had in the past, but I could have sworn they had like maybe something close to $1 trillion in the bank or something, or it was like an insane amount of money just in cash. Maybe they've done buybacks and stuff to drop that down in the past few years. I haven't followed Apple's financials, but they have a ton of money. They could literally just like buy it for kicks, or just ironically Nissan kicks. But they could buy it and just do their Apple Car, and kind of take Nissan in a new direction. And especially if Nissan's game for some kind of reimagination of the company like that, I could see that maybe being possible. I don't think Nissan and Apple are perfectly aligned. I did think for a while that if Apple wanted to buy a car company, they probably would have bought Lucid, because Lucid was very innovative, kind of had an Apple kind of vibe to them in a few ways. Very innovative, batteries, very innovative, motors and all that. But that obviously hasn't happened yet. I don't think it will, since Lucid seems like they're okay money wise for now. But yeah, I don't know who Nissan's going to partner with, if they partner with anyone at all. I think one of the other things I saw recently about the Nissan thing in the past week here, it was that with the recent geopolitical events and these companies being worried about just the uncertainty of everything, I saw a rumor that it's potentially possible that the Japanese government is contemplating just letting Nissan fail, and just kind of being like, is this all worth saving if we're going to have the rug pulled out from underneath of us next week with some new tariffs announced that make it impossible to do business? Or it's just so hard to tell how much of this stuff is bluffing and how much of this is actually heartfelt policy, desires from this administration. It's just so hard to say. So, I feel like from any company standpoint, it's so hard to plan anything, to partner with anything, to make any plans for the future, because you don't know what the future holds more than ever. And it's just like, one day you're fine, and the next day it's like, oh wait, we might not be able to bring in stuff from Canada and Mexico anymore. And it's like, if you have, as a business, you have that kind of uncertainty, it's paralyzing, because it's like, well, what do? You can't make plans, because you make any plan whatsoever and you're going to be screwed one way or the other, and it's going to screw you no matter what. It's just like, yeah, I am so glad I'm not a decision maker in a large business, or even working for any large company, because I'm even worried about YouTube. We saw what happened with TikTok. If someday, someone decides that they don't like YouTube anymore, like, who knows what can happen? I think YouTube's too big to take down, knock on wood. But, again, nothing's, a sure thing these days. But anyway, Chad, thank you so much also for your super chat. I see he says, Sony releasing a car while their network crashes. Yeah, I completely missed this news about the network crashes for Sony. But yeah, it doesn't sound good. But Sean, thank you so much for being a member for 31 months now as well. I appreciate that. He said, just stopped in to say hi. Can't stay. Everyone take care. Thanks, Sean, for stopping by. Hopefully didn't keep you waiting too long. You might have already left, but thanks so much for stopping by, Sean, and for being a member for 31 months. I really appreciate the support. Getting back to the member questions here. I got a last half an hour. I'm going to try and be more concise and get through the questions as best I can here, so no one gets left behind, at least as far as the members go here. I see Dave was asking, we covered that about the news clips. MDCan says, no used Ioniq 5Ns yet, only 4 within 50 miles of my area. Interesting. I did see a couple pop up. And I think last I saw a used 5N, and I think it was about 50 grand. And I was like, damn, this thing is already 50. And like, so, because it was like, they're 65 grand new. And I'm like, okay, if it's already 50, you were already now undercutting Integra Type S with, in my opinion, a better car. I love Integra Type S, and if you want a manual, you want real gas, powertrains, obviously, Integra Type S is phenomenal. Still love it, would happily own one, daily drive one. But, now it's undercutting that. We're basically at Type R pricing too. And, it's like, the only thing is GR Corollas are still low 30s. So for me, that's still the winner. But if it undercuts GR Corolla somehow, eventually, then that would probably usurp the GR Corolla as far as being my like car to move into at some point, in the future here, if I can justify money for a fun car at some point. But anyway, yeah, we'll see if they do pop up or not in the future here. But Chad says, no politics, but how do you think manufacturers are going to react to the back and forth? Kind of already covered that. Maybe have a few key models assembled in the US. Yes, as far as production, there is some of that can, be adjusted a little bit for some of these companies. I think, Porsche is preparing for European tariffs and the idea of possibly building Macans in the US at, I believe they said the Chattanooga plant possibly, or maybe one of the other ones. But they, are considering doing that. And, all their highest volume models kind of building, that stuff in the US the best they can. That's possible. It's just, again, these things are also fast moving that you don't know, is this going to still be a thing in 6 months, or is it still going to be a thing next week? Again, these proposed tariffs on Canada and Mexico evaporated in a week, and it took like 2 phone calls of just talking to each other and being, okay, well, now we'll put this on hold. And obviously the stock market tanking and stuff, I think, assisted that. Again, not to get into politics, but, I think, it's just, whenever you're even changing and you say, okay, let's build Macan in Tennessee or whatever, to bring that, all that stuff over, and to change either suppliers or get those suppliers to then ship everything to the US instead, but just to assemble, and the different lines and the different demands of each vehicle. You can't just, say, oh, we're going to quit making ID4s today, now we're going to make Macans here. You have to have all the components. You have to have everything tooled up. And that tooling process often takes at least 6 months, if not longer. So, you spend 6 months tooling this stuff up, and then you can have the rug pulled from you again. And it's like, okay, well, we just brought Macan production here. And now it makes no sense because now they're still tariffing German part content, for example, or something, or they change it to some other thing, or it's just like it's all over the place. So I think most companies, they're just going to try and hunker down and hope for the best, see what stuff actually sticks and what stuff doesn't. I know, like Ford, for example, their CEO said that they could have weathered tariffs for a few weeks, supply chain wise and profit wise, before it started to become a massive issue of like giant layoffs, plant closures, stopping production lines, all that kind of stuff. So if it goes for a few weeks, you probably won't see much difference. But if these are extended things, then it's, there's some things you can adjust. But, if you can't bring Macans into the States for 6 months until you get that changed over, and that's assuming that you're shipping over that stuff, you're stopping production in Germany, by the way, or wherever they're built, stopping production there, taking those components, air freighting them over to, Tennessee or whatever overnight, and then 6 months to get that stuff all, set up in a new factory. You got over 6 months of downtime of no new Macans, and then you got to ramp up and build the supply up again. It's just a whole domino effect. There's so many complicated components for all this stuff that, make it so that, again, it's a nice idea in theory of, sure, let's bring more manufacturing back to the States. But I think really for a lot of this, it's just going to benefit the companies that already have stuff in the States. It's just going to benefit them, but anyone trying to catch up that's behind the ball, it's just going to be a losing game either way. And in the meantime, everyone's going to go buy all the F-150s that are built in the States, go buy all the Teslas that are built in the States, go buy all the other stuff, that's going to be the winners. And, Tesla builds a lot of cars in the States. Who's running the show in a lot of these departments and, influencing a lot of these decisions? Musk. So, again, I won't go down that rabbit hole, but those tariffs, I think, would have really benefited Tesla a lot. But anyway, I will move on. Esselvanum said, just turned the home AC on here in Austin in February. Crazy. That's funny. Yeah, I think my sister-in-law actually lives in Austin as well. I didn't think she said it was that hot there, but we haven't talked to her in a couple of days, so I'm not sure. But she has been enjoying the warm weather, though. That's one of the perks. She's from Pittsburgh, but certainly likes the winters in Texas better, understandably. But let me see here. MD Can says, Matt, is there an Ioniq 5? There is an Ioniq 5N in Savannah for 54 with under 12,000 on it. There you go. Okay, so you're searching as well. So yeah, 54, a little higher than what I saw, but yeah, glad there's that low 50s. That makes it a whole lot more appealing than 65 grand. But let me see. MD Can says, my custom vehicle would be an Ioniq 5N tech and powertrain in OS Gen Kona first generation with a wide body and some nice wheels. That would be wild. That'd be a fun project. And he says, and make it rear-wheel drive. Well, with Ioniq 5N, you can, put all the power to the back and make it drift happy if you want. That's awesome. Harsha says, you got to give it to Tesla, although they're very late for everything. When they launched the new Model 3 and Y into the European market, in the US market, they launched them very quickly from their original teaser. The new Model Y was unveiled in the US in January, and they started shipping in March. Yeah, I know. They did a really good job this time. Model 3 was a lot slower. Excuse me. And a lot quicker here for Y. So they did a better job for sure this time. And Yavinder says, I just searched Mustang GT sound, and that was the second result of the search. Wow. Okay. Well, excuse me, man. Glad that explains it. Thanks for looking that up. And sorry again, we're like a half an hour behind or more on that. And Dave says, or I see Y Has is asking, today isn't Sunday. You have Super Bowl plans. Just didn't want to compete with a Super Bowl. Kind of hard to compete with. Didn't want to have anyone else, feel torn or anything. So I just figured I wouldn't have anyone watching if I had it, during the Super Bowl here. But Dave says American cars going to Europe already have a 10% tariff. Right. And so, and, there's already been tariffs been in, place for a long time. I mean, the chicken tax is the oldest, tariff around, at least as far as American tariffs. That's why we don't get any of the cool trucks from Europe or any of the cool trucks from the Asian markets. The amount of cheap, wonderful little trucks we would have had here if it wasn't for the chicken tax. So I think that's why it's kind of, tit for tat in a way, because it's like, you have, yeah, sure, you got to pay 10% to bring a car from America into Europe. But then Europe wants to send stuff here, and there's you can't for some of this stuff. It's just too expensive, and like people are mad about the Chinese car tariffs, but it's like we've been locked out of affordable cars for decades because of all of these, chicken tax trucks that we've been forced into F-150s if you want a truck for, a lot of people, because you can't have any of these cool things. And, all these insane, just safety regulations as far as, not letting all these older vehicles come in. There's states fighting against K cars even after the 25-year law here, and still mad about those being brought in, and all these stupid, laws that are just attacking all these small cars and all these other things. So that's the thing, is it's like, we've been living with a non-open market for decades. And, that's part of why we have the bloat. We have the bloat in American vehicles because people don't have a lot of really good truck options, or at least they didn't until the past few years. If you wanted a good truck, it had to be something gigantic. And I think, that's part of it. If we didn't have the chicken tax, I think we'd have way less gigantic trucks on the road. Because people wouldn't have been accustomed to that. I think if you would have let these things come in the 80s when they were fantastic, and in the 90s when they were fantastic, you would have had these loyal buyers of K trucks and small trucks from Europe and stuff for all these past few decades, and then they wouldn't feel the need to go up to an F-150, and because no one else would have had gigantic trucks. Obviously, F-150s would still be good sellers, but not, 1 million units a year almost, or whatever the insanity they're doing, So, I mean, I think, it's one of those things. This isn't a new phenomenon, and it's one of these things. I think tariffs have made things worse for a long time. In some cases, I think there are some good examples of tariffs. I'm in support of the Chinese EV tariffs, because I think that would wreck the American auto industry. And I mean, people would almost never buy anything other than a Chinese EV if you can get amazing cars for 20 grand. Why would anyone buy anything else unless you're an apartment dweller and you can't charge? But even then, if it's 20 grand, money talks. Look at all these, again, cheap EVs. EV sales are taking off here in these past few months here because of the threat of the tax credit going away and the fact that they're dirt cheap. It's all about the price. When you get the right price, you're set. So anyway, it's a very complicated thing, I know, but it's a lot of talk about that in the past few weeks here. But anyway, Italian Nice 678, thank you so much for a very generous super chat. I really appreciate that. He says, "Hey Matt, hope you and your family are well. Just wondering how the rev match in the Mustang worked. Did it blip when you changed the gear or when you released the clutch? Also, I crashed my Matrix in the rain, so no more. Now have EF Hatch to review." Awesome. Well, sorry to hear about the wreck. Hopefully the Matrix protected you, kept you, safe. But thanks for offering your EF Hatch. I really appreciate that. That is, that's one that I'd love to review. So, we'll see. I don't know how many road trips I'll be able to do this year. It's going to come down to, press cars and just how I can make those kind of trips happen. But I'd love to review an EF Hatch someday. And as far as the Mustang blipping, it kind of had a little like solenoid sensor, so you could kind of trick it to rev match before letting out the clutch. It was pretty good though, because like Chevy's system was a little easier to trick and have it blip erroneously, I guess you could say. The Mustang, it basically, I think it looks at both clutch and also the shifter. Maybe someone knows this better than I do, can explain it better. But for me, it seemed like it was gear indicator. So it saw that I was, going into another gear. It usually would be also whenever I was doing a quick shift. So it was always so hard to tell if it was clutch activated or if it was shifter activated, because if I like randomly am just like moving the shifter around, like say I'm cruising it on the highway and I have the clutch in and I'm just playing around with the shifter, it wouldn't be like it wouldn't be blipping. I don't remember it doing that. It only seemed to do it when I started. So maybe it was like the second I started doing a tiny bit of clutch let up, where it immediately revved super fast and did that blip on me. And it was occasionally rough. It wasn't perfect every time, but most of the time it was fantastic. I see also the Flip Biscuits asking if I missed the Bullet. I absolutely do miss it. It was still my dream car, and I'm definitely, missing it. So usually in the wintertime, I didn't drive it much, but whenever it's nice, warm weather, especially if I see like another bullet on the road or something, it's like, oh man, it's every time I see even a regular, Mustang GT, even that, gives me a little tug on my heartstrings. But especially when I see a bullet, like, especially like Beth will see it coming from a mile away, and like she'll know, like, oh man, he's gonna like be like, just laser focused on that bullet driving by, because it's it's a car I miss a lot. But yeah, Italian Ice, thank you again so much for the very generous super chat. I really appreciate it, and hope that EF Hatch treats you well. And definitely send me an email, by the way, as well, with some info on it. And I don't recall exactly where you were located there. I believe it was around the New York area, but definitely let me know. And if I am in that area for any reason as well, maybe I'll be able to swing by and make that happen. But I do have a long list of of cars still. But yeah, we'll see. New York's not too far if that's where you're still at, if I remember correctly, and be able to do something at some point here. But yeah, thank you again so much. And Chad, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, best IIHS crash without headlight and radar in your opinion. So I mean, I think if you're talking just like best crash performances, usually Volvo is one of the best ones. The luxury brands are always usually pretty good. Mercedes is usually some of the top stuff, although they recently had a miss. I just saw a couple of days ago, where in the new test they just didn't do well with the backseat ratings for some reason. I'm not sure why. I have to look into that. But Volvo and Mercedes are usually the top two companies from a crash safety standpoint. Lots of other ones that are really, really good too. But usually those are some of the top ones typically. But MB Can says that the price be your biggest super chat, Matt. That is definitely the biggest one of tonight. I remember there definitely in the past there's been some even bigger, believe it or not. I mean it's very rare when something like that comes in. So thank you again so much for that, Italian Ice. He's the VIP of the night here for that, as well as all those who continue to gift memberships every single week. That is also just, again, so generous. But anyway, last 15 minutes or so here, I'm going to try and do the other member questions here. I think we've caught up a decent bit here, but let me see. Where were we here? Chad's saying hashtag fantasy car build. Yeah, that was a great question Zachary had. Carr says, from earlier, I've previously done some extensive research about LED flicker. One of my favorite sources for purchasing them is flicker-free LED lighting by Waveform Lighting. I might buy some myself. Interesting. Well, thank you for giving me that info. I really appreciate it. I had no clue that was a thing. Flicker-free. That's kind of easy to remember too. So thank you. Waveform Lighting. I appreciate that. I was talking earlier. It did stop. I think my LED light above here was flickering on me. Let me see. Joe says kicking Ram when they're down, which sounds like Ford. That made me LOL. Matt, tell us you love Ford without telling us you do, right? Yeah, Ford is a love it. It's kind of a love it and hate it kind of relationship. They make some really good stuff. I mean, the Mach-E has been, knock on wood, pretty reliable, very solid vehicle. Just that rear brake thing and then going through the tires so fast, but it's been a really good car for us so far, and they make some really good stuff. But some of the corporate decisions, some of the stuff Farley says, some of the other things, corporate stuff that I've heard about, it's just like, don't love everything about Ford, but they make good products. And thankfully they're not a polarizing company yet, like Tesla is. So it's one of those things where I can kind of, put my little issues of Ford aside and still, appreciate the good products that they do in many ways. But MB Can says, yeah, Matt, the EX30 is tight. Headroom is great, but I did not fit in legroom. Yeah, okay, that's what I've heard. So it's probably not going to work for us. I'm hoping they do an EX60. Probably going to be more expensive than we can afford, but I'm hoping that, might be ready in time. And if the channel is doing much better, it'd be great to, get the family in a Volvo, because again, they are very, very safe, and, be nice to have that, but we'll see. And Gran says, I watched both on a computer and an Apple TV 4K. Nice. Well, thanks for letting me know. I see there actually are more people still watching on computers than I expected. I kind of thought everyone was either, tablet or phone or just TV, but there's actually, I think about 20 to 21% of people are still watching on computers, which I'm actually happy to see because I think you still have the best experience on YouTube potentially on a computer in a lot of ways. And obviously some of the best displays. You're closer to the screen than a TV, so you can really appreciate some of the detail, a little bit more, I think, sometimes. And yeah, I'm still an old school computer fan myself. And Ambient Can said the tech functioned very well. The ambient lighting was nice. The interior was so Scandinavian, minimalistic, and sleek for the EX30. There are definitely cheap materials, but the worst was the rock hard center armrest. Oh, yeah, I couldn't do a rock hard center armrest. I'd have to put some padding on it, or yeah, that kind of a deal breaker, I think. It says also plus with Volvos, you get their unmatched safety, yeah, which is a huge thing to me. When I signed the dotted line on cars, yeah, I completely agree with you on that. So yeah, EX30, it's cool that you got to check it out. I'll have to look into how they're bringing those things over right now. And let me see. Vinder says Ford has to bring back the Taurus SHO and the 5-liter V8 to put shame to Dodge for killing the Charger V8. Excuse me. Yeah, I think the thing that I've heard is we're gonna get possibly this new Mustang Mach 4 is what the rumor has been suggesting it's going to be called, where it's going to be an actual gas V8, probably manual transmission, at least as an option, 4-door Mustang sedan, like a real actual like Charger replacement. And supposedly there's been talk of that's what police forces are also going to be buying for the ones that don't want SUVs. That is going to kind of be something they're teeing up for them too, to again replace Charger. And I guess the Tauruses that are aging out, because I think like the state troopers around here, some of them still run Tauruses, but they are kind of getting old at this point. But yeah, I'm curious to see how Ford plays that. They do have the motor, and it's a great motor. The 5.0 is one of the best V8s ever, in my opinion. I love that thing. And let me see here. Cars, thank you so much for being a member for 8 months now. He says, have you ever heard of Tello Trucks? Supposedly they're a Silicon Valley startup for small pickups that has partnered with Aperta Motors solar cars. Interesting. I hadn't heard about that, I don't think. The Aptera, or however you say that, I thought they were struggling. I don't know. Sounds like two struggling companies. I don't know if they're going to make it, but we'll see. If any of these companies get built out by these larger tech companies, or who just goes by the wayside, it'll be interesting. But I haven't heard of them. Sorry, I missed the other super chats there from Jordan and Chad. So Jordan, thank you for another super chat. He says, a modern/stylish Ford C-Max EV compete with Tesla. I think that's kind of maybe what they're going for with whatever this $25,000 EV is that Ford has been supposedly working on. I'm guessing they're not going to try and do C-Max styling, because I think that was part of the problem of that car, was just not exciting enough for some people. Yeah, I think something that's just a real Tesla competitor in a lower segment. I think Mach-E obviously competes with Model Y, perfectly fine right now, but having something to undercut and see who gets to that point first. I know Tesla's saying sometime in the first, half of this year, they're going to have some kind of, new model as well. We'll see what that ends up being, if that actually happens. But yeah, it'd be great to see Ford, do something like that. And Chad, thank you for a super chat. He says, why no third row rear end crash test rating for kids? I don't know. I don't know if maybe the data is just that there's not a ton of times where a third row is actually in use, statistically speaking. Because I think even the numbers suggest, I think 9 out of 10 vehicles on the road only have a driver. And even just like having a passenger is like a 10% of the time kind of thing. I saw that statistic somewhere. I don't know if that's 100% fact, so don't quote me on that or take that to the bank. But, it's a very small percentage of vehicles that aren't even just having more than one driver, vehicle or person in the vehicle, which is why HOV lanes exist and why not everyone's sitting in the HOV lane, because none of those cars qualify to be in the HOV lane because they're not having 2 people in them. So then you say, okay, well, what about people in the back seat? And then you say, well, okay, now what about people in the third row? And then that's really, we're talking slice of a pie, slice of a pie, slice of a pie to get this little narrow sliver, which is why, I'm sure it's something that obviously should be researched. I think that's kind of just something that at this current point in time, they just leave up to the car companies. And this is why, you want a company, if you're worried about safety, that not only focuses on passing a test, but passes their own internal tests. And that's what I love about Volvo and Mercedes is both of them have internal standards and testing that is far beyond what the IHS tests. And this is why when they put, a 5 or old, even older than 5 years old Volvo through a brand new test that hasn't been announced until like this year, the Volvos still pass because they aren't engineered for a current test. They're engineered beyond that. And that's where you really find the difference between the companies that actually not care about safety, but the companies that actually are overachieving on safety and the ones that are just trying to check the box. The ones that are just trying to check the box, the second there's a new test, like we see with the IHS test, obviously you have to cost cut, and there's, that whole bean counter thing of, do we spend the money on this if no one's going to actually appreciate it because they're not seeing that on a crash test or whatever. But, we saw, with this new test this past year with the moderate overlap checking out, rear seat safety, where all of a sudden a bunch of cars that everyone thought were safe, all of a sudden now you see the seat belts aren't holding people in properly. People are getting banged up more than you thought they would, and something that's supposedly historically a safe vehicle, and they still are very safe, especially for front seat occupants. But it's like it kind of put a spotlight on, like, aha, I caught you, like you were cutting corners here, and then everyone scrambles to improve that, to catch up to that. And a lot of companies even don't bother, but for the ones that do, at least they're catching up to it. But it just shows the companies that engineer to a test and the ones that engineer to their own standards. And that's why, again, Volvo and Mercedes are fantastic. And Volvo, I think their pledge was by 2030 to have 0 deaths in a Volvo. Obviously that's going to come down to freak accidents, and if you get plowed into by a Cybertruck, there's only so much that can save you from physics if if things aren't going your way. But that's their goal, and that's the kind of stuff that really, again, as a parent and someone who cares about safety, it's really cool to see. But anyway, great questions, everyone, and just get to the last few member questions here, and then we will sign off in the last 5 minutes here. So let me see, getting caught up here on where we were. MD Can says, yeah, the EX30s came faster than expected. Volvo prioritized the EX30's arrival to the US due to strong sales in Europe. I guess they are all being built in Belgium currently. Okay, so wow, I didn't know Belgium was already up and running. So I guess if that's the case, then yeah, maybe EX30s are actually in play now. Cool. Thank you for the info. I was completely oblivious to that. So thanks for that. I'll have to look into those now. And let me see. Chad says, Not Just Bikes has a cool channel about all modes of transportation and infrastructure. Cool. Thanks for the recommendation. I'll check that out. I see Patricia says, Matt, our boy. Thanks for stopping by, Patricia, there. And let me see. Harsha says, I do watch that Not Just the Bikes. I agree with many points that he makes. Driving in the U.S. is a need, as you can't live in the U.S. without a car, but that shouldn't be the norm. People who don't care about driving shouldn't be forced to. Cars should be driven by people who want to, and for the people that don't, they can't take public transportation or ride a bicycle. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cities where it is a walkable city or a walkable town. I mean, I even had a buddy that lived in a certain part of San Diego where they were able to really walk to most things, and they still obviously had cars, but a lot of these various cities, like New York, I truly think you still don't need a car really in New York for a lot of people if you're in New York City. So there are some places where you can, but I think, most, 95 or more percent of the population probably still needs a car, no matter what. So it is important to, focus on that. But thank you so much for the another super chat, another very generous one too. Sorry I missed it until now. I think, or is that? No, that's the same one. Sorry. I'm getting my super chats mixed up. I just didn't realize we were that far behind on the member questions. But let me see. So MD Can says, I'm not sure if Bobby Ray Hall's the nearest dealer, but they have an EX30 there. Ultra Performance, 11, 20, 25 and a half EX90s. They don't have any dealer pics of them. Interesting. Yeah, Bobby Ray Hall actually is the closest one to me. So that's cool. You're doing all the research for me tonight, MD Can. Thank you. I'll have to swing by Bobby Ray Hall soon and check out the EX30. Even just a quick little drive by to see what they are like, because I'm curious. Anyway, yeah, I'm surprised. I'm sorry for everyone's been waiting for their member questions to be answered. I didn't realize we're so far behind here. But MD Can says, what's everyone's spots of the week? Mine is spotting an Intense Blue, Elantra, and 6-speed at a local car lot near my work. 25,000 miles on it for $27,000. Not a bad deal. That is a good deal. I think, yeah, Elantra ends are fantastic. If you can find one that hasn't been, modded with sketchy, like, reliability affecting mods, absolutely. Elantra N, you can find a nice clean one. I think it's a solid buy at 27 grand, especially these days. Chad says Mitsubishi doesn't want to bring a truck because of the chicken tax. What if they did their own version of the Brat? That could be fun. Yeah. And just, pretend that it's not a truck. Yeah, although there are some SUVs too that can't get brought in for similar reasons, I think. Or maybe I can't remember what the criteria is for chicken tax, but I'm sure someone must have tried after Subaru did with a Brat. I don't know. It probably would maybe just be that it wouldn't pass modern safety standards as far as, because you'd have to have, side airbags, I believe, are a requirement. Probably hard to do in a truck bed. Yeah, there's probably some other stuff there. I don't know. But Empty Can says, I'm going to be trying out a PHEV next month while both my cars are getting inspected. Going to be a Volvo EX60, hopefully. Nice. Hopefully it's a newer newer XC60, because they, had the plug-in hybrids for a while and they were not the best. It got like, I don't know, it was like 15 miles of range, super small little electric motor that was really weak. Not the best. But then, when was it? I think 2023 or 2024, they added in stronger motors, bigger battery, and those ones you can actually use as an EV for the mileage, that they're rated for until that battery runs out. Those ones are great. I just did the Polestar engineered version of the EX60 with that plug-in hybrid powertrain, a few months back, and that was actually really good. I really like that a lot. And I guess that could be another potential thing. If those are, cheaper on the used market, maybe if we wanted to go plug-in hybrid after the Mach-E, that could be, potential. Just go for a used XC60. Although the one that I had, the Polestar engineered, literally threw a check engine light during the week that I had it as a brand new car. So I don't love that from an ownership standpoint, but maybe if I could find one that's a little more solid, that could be a possibility. And let me see. Okay, I think we're close to getting caught up here. So let me see. Luke says maybe Chinese EVs could be the steak tax, right? Just keep going with the meat names there. You got chicken, steak, pork. Just keep on going there. TFI says I watch on PC or on the toilet. None of my TVs in my home are 4K. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So that is also another component to consider. Is doing 4K for TV viewers or computer owners, but not everyone has a computer that does 4K. Not everyone's watching on a 4K TV. It's a very good point. So thanks for pointing that out, TFI. I wish YouTube would tell me how many people are watching and what resolution, but I don't think I can see that data. Because even on the weekly updates, if I could see how many of you are actually watching it in 4K, that would really help me to figure out whether I need to rush into 4K or not. Because 4K is a kind of a domino effect of, you upgrade cameras, which is an investment, which is fine. I got to invest in that stuff, inevitably at one point or another anyway. But then it also puts more strain on, a computer. And so, might be something I need to upgrade, sooner rather than later if I'm always doing 4K for everything. And then, you blow through backup hard drives faster because the files are so much bigger. So you're, burning through, these external drives a lot quicker and stuff. Again, the cost of doing business, but just some extra stuff that the 4K comes at a cost, so that's kind of why I've kind of dragged my feet on it for a while, but we'll see what this year brings. Luke says I watch on my Google Pixel with a portable speaker. Oh, that's cool. So you get the better audio quality. That's a fun idea. That's cool. Thanks for sharing how you guys are watching. That's always fun to hear. TFI says I hold it I hold it in until the first acceleration so I can feel something. That's funny. That's a good one. Thanks for the laugh. And let me see. Jordan says, thanks for the live and for the car of the week feature. You're welcome, Jordan. Thanks so much for contributing and for hanging out every week. I really appreciate that from you and Chad. And TFI says, Swedish crash safety mentioned. Shout out Saab. Yeah, Saab is another legendary company. I'm so sad they're basically dead. I guess they're kind of living on in the Middle East, right? In a way, but man, that would have been another one. Would have loved to see them get saved somehow. And MD Can says, have a great rest of your weekend. And Matt and everyone, I enjoyed this episode. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Hope everyone enjoyed it here. And Let me see. MDK says, "You're welcome, Matt. I may not work at a Volvo dealer anymore, but I still follow them deeply." Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Yeah, so I see Jay Chan says, my company delivered an EX30 that was a dealer demo this week, and from the window sticker, it was 100% built in China. Thought about replacing my Veloster N with the Elantra, but I'd rather save for the INX 6N or GV60 Magma. Yeah, well, I don't blame you for that, because INX 6N, if it is just copy and paste the 5 in the 6 body and the better handling of that lower, vehicle, that is going to be magic. That's probably, I don't know if that's coming this year, but if it is, probably going to be my top, car of the year. Spoiler alert. I mean, we'll see what else comes out this year, but yeah, GV60 Magma, again, if that's just that more luxurious Ioniq 5N, sign me up for that. That sounds fantastic as well, especially if it's just as rowdy, but has all the luxuries. That would be a really, dream daily there for sure. Those are both fantastic cars. If you have the means to go for one of those, I mean, they're going to be, 70 grand, probably. I mean, Ioniq 6 maybe will be same price as the 5, but the GV60, obviously, that's going to be a pricey car probably. But yeah, if you can afford it, I'd wait for those. I love Veloster N and the Elantra N too, but I mean, it's a whole another world of power and wildness with, those ends, the electric ends, I mean. So anyway, but yeah, we are over the 2-hour mark here, so I'm going to sign off. But thank you all so much for stopping by, and apologies to those of you who I weren't able to get to your questions, those non-members. Definitely, like I always say, feel free to send me a message. I have all my contact info in the description below there, as far as whatever social media you want to reach out on. Always happy to answer questions, whenever I get a chance to do that. But, in the meantime, stay tuned for next week's live stream, which will be back to Sundays again next week. Hope you all enjoy the Super Bowl tomorrow if you care about that. And yeah, thank you all very much for watching. Have a great rest of your weekend, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks again. Take care.